Good evening. Now, following the footsteps of Finance Minister P. Chidambaram after the budget on March 4th, where he spoke to panelists ranging from economists to a housewife in a long-hour Google Hangout session, the Planning Commission in India is doing the same today. The Commission's first hour-long session is beginning. Let's cut across to that.
Let's start off with you. What was the idea behind this Google Hangout? And I believe you have a message from the Prime Minister as well.
Well, the basic idea was to reach out to as many people, especially younger people who use social media. The Prime Minister was very supportive of this idea and wanted me on his own behalf, to thank everyone who's participating. I think we do regard communication, especially with younger people, very important, and this is a useful way of getting our views on things they're interested in and maybe responses of different participants.
Sam Pitroda, let me drag you in on that note. The use of social media and hangouts like this, is this going to become really more and more crucial as we go forward?
I think social media is becoming more and more important to the government. As you know, now we are a nation of a connected billion. Not too long ago we had 2 million telephones, now we have 900 million telephones. We have almost 90 million active internet users, 66 million social media users. 74% of the people in urban areas are connected to internet. Almost 40 million people are active mobile internet users. And this number is growing every day. Government has made substantial investments in the last 5 years to improve broadband. We have built National Knowledge Network to connect all our universities, all our libraries, all our R&D institutions. We are building a network to connect 250,000 panchayats. We have UID. Dr. Kasturi Rangan and others are working on GIS, applications, electronic payments. So all of these things are finally coming together. And I believe in the future, we will have millions and millions more connected to this media, and this is the media for the young. And I remember a brief conversation we had, Montek and I had with Prime Minister over a lunch during Pravas Bharati Divas. We talked about this idea, and there was support from everybody. And I think this is the beginning. We are learning something today. We will make it better tomorrow. We'll learn some more and get more and more people to come into this.
All right, and of course, the minute you throw this open to social media and you throw it open to all the young people, lots of questions, including some tough ones. So let me just start taking some of those that are already coming in. So from Twitter, Prasoon Panthai, right here on Google+, Saurabh Jain, both their questions are related to the same thing. It's a time of decentralization, while Google Hangouts and all and Twitter may be the new world. At the end of the day, is the Planning Commission itself and the PIF plan a bit of an anachronism? That's the question being asked. Dr. Ahluwalia, why do we still need a Planning Commission and a plan?
That's a good question, actually. People have a completely wrong idea of what the Planning Commission or planning is about. We are not doing top-down, centralized planning, deciding things for different people. There are really 3 or 4 things that the Planning Commission does. One is it sets a sort of national target and the implications of that national target. I mean, what is the growth rate we want? What will that do for income? How do we make it more inclusive? How will that affect poverty? How much energy do we need? Now, somebody has to do that. Otherwise, the detailed sectoral work really can't be done. The second point is that even when sectoral targets are fixed, they're not being done by governments, nor are we giving directions to individual companies what to do. We're looking at the whole thing and we're saying in each sector, what is it that the government has to do? What is it that the private sector has to do? And in many sectors, it's the private sector that will do it all. But where the government has to do something, somebody has to be able to make sure that the resources are available. And you add up the resources that the government has to spend on all these things, and you link that up with a budget. That's what the Planning Commission does. And the third important thing that the Planning Commission does is that the private sector is now very important. I mean, 75% of all the investment in the country is done by the private sector. That means farmers, households, unincorporated enterprises, and the corporate sector. Now, these are not investments that are subject to government direction because the economy is now liberalized, but they are influenced by government policies. So if you want to encourage farmers to invest, you want to encourage small businesses to expand, you need to ask the question, what is the ecosystem that will make it possible for all these people to do what we want, to do the investment, create the employment? That's something that the Planning Commission does. Now, you know, in each of these things, we interact with the ministries. The difference is the ministries have a narrow, if you like, a silo view of what's happening in their sector. But almost every ministry's area is affected by policies taken by other ministries. So it's really something like the Planning Commission that takes a look at what's happening in a particular sector because of policies in that sector and how's it being impacted by policies in some other sector. Now, you know, this job has to be done in every country. It doesn't all have to be done in something called a planning commission, but many different ways. In some places it's done in the Prime Minister's office. In some places the budgeting part is done in one place, the policy part is done in another place. In India, it's done in the Planning Commission, and one important difference is for India, we are the only body in the government that looks at what is needed by the states. So the central government also gives money to the states, it has to listen to the states, it has to mediate to the central government the point of view of state governments. So that's another function that we actually perform.
All right, fine. So that's a function of the plan and of the Planning Commission. Does it do it effectively? Does it actually make a difference on the ground? Why don't I go across to Mr. Jagdish Bairwa, who's the Sarpanch of the Kanpura Gram Panchayat. He's joining us from Ajmer in Rajasthan. And I guess the basic question is, at the end of the day, does the entire planning exercise actually make a difference there on the ground for the people who need it? Or are there big concerns obviously on delivery mechanisms and everything reaching out there? Let me come to Mr. Bairwa.
नमस्ते सर, मैं जगदीश बेरवा सरपंच कानपुरा राजस्थान से बोल रहा हूँ
जी।
पंचवर्षीय योजना को लेकर कुछ सवाल है जो मैं शेयर करना चाहूंगा।
आप उसको शेयर करिए कि उस पर उससे पहले जो कॉन्टेक्ट जी कह रहे थे कि इस सारी प्लानिंग एक्सरसाइज से वहां काफी फर्क पड़ता है पंचायत में जो काम वहां होता है, तो इससे इस पर आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे?
जी सर।
बोलिए बैरवा जी।
इंटरनेट सिस्टम रूरल एरिया में डेवलप होने के बाद में ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में काफी जागरूकता पैदा हुई है और वो जो ग्रामीण क्षेत्र के जो लोग हैं वो इंटरनेट के बारे में जानने लगे हैं और इसका उपयोग भी कर रहे हैं।
ये जो फिफ्थ प्लान है 12th प्लान है, उसके बारे में अगर आपके पास कोई सवाल है तो आप पूछिए। प्लानिंग कमीशन हमारे साथ है, वो आपके सवाल का जवाब दे पाएंगे।
जी सर। स्वास्थ्य, शिक्षा और बेरोजगारी ग्रामीण भारत की मुख्य समस्या रही है। इसको लेकर पंचवर्षीय योजना में सरकार क्या कर रही है?
Right. Dr. Alwani, who wants to take that question on the Planning Commission?
Can I come in a little bit?
Yeah.
I will be taking the question. Now, I think the main issue here, Vikram, is that with internet, we believe the models are going to change. You know, in village, people always complain about teacher not coming on time, doctor not there in the hospital. I think internet is going to create whole new model of development and delivery of public services.
Okay.
Internet is all about democratization of information. It will improve access, it will improve accountability, openness, and I think the concept of governance will change at the panchayat level. And that's the...
Right, sir. Let me now just toss that across to the Planning Commission. And Dr. Ahluwalia, who in the Planning Commission wants to take that? Perhaps Professor Abhijit.
I'm going to ask Narendra Jadhav to answer the question on education and Saida Hamid to answer the question on health. So first Jadhav, then Saida, what are we doing on education and health that will make a difference in the village?
धन्यवाद जगदीश जी, आपने बिल्कुल सही फरमाया है। ग्रामीण भारत में शिक्षा एवं रोजगारी की जो समस्या है उसी को मद्देनजर रखते हुए 12वीं पंचवार्षिक योजना में शिक्षा और कौशल विकास के ऊपर विशेष रूप से बल दिया जा रहा है। शालेय शिक्षा हो या माध्यमिक शिक्षा हो या उच्च शिक्षा हो, ये सारे मामलों में बहुत बड़ा प्रसारण 12वीं पंचवार्षिक योजना के तहत हो रहा है। लेकिन शिक्षा में प्रसारण के साथ साथ गुणवत्ता सुधार, क्वालिटी इंप्रूवमेंट, इसकी भी बहुत निहायत ही जरूरी है और उसी के लिए 12वीं पंचवार्षिक योजना में विशेष रूप से प्रयास किया जा रहा है। आपने शिक्षक अध्यापक की बात की, उसके बारे में मैं कहना चाहूंगा कि टीचर्स की रिक्रूटमेंट बड़े तादाद में हो रही है। टीचर्स एलिजिबिलिटी टेस्ट जो है वो जारी कर दिए गए हैं और सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात यह है कि 12वीं पंचवार्षिक योजना में नेशनल मिशन ऑन टीचर्स और ट्रेनिंग इसका संकल्प किया गया है। इसी के जरिए फिलहाल जो कठिनाइयां जिसका जिक्र आपने किया वो कठिनाइयां काफी हद तक दूर हो सकती। जहां तक बेरोजगारी का ताल्लुक है, इसी तो कारण से कौशल विकास को 12वीं पंचवार्षिक योजना में अग्रक्रम दिया गया है। मिसाल के तौर पर मैं कहना चाहूंगा कि जिसको वोकेशनल गाइडेंस कहते हैं उसको बढ़ावा दिया जा रहा है। स्किल डेवलपमेंट की कौशल निर्माण की मिशन केंद्रीय स्तर पर जैसे है वैसे आज सारे राज्यों में वो मिशन एस्टैब्लिश की गई है, शुरू की गई है। सेक्टर स्किल काउंसिल का निर्माण हुआ है और ITI, ITC, अप्रेंटिसशिप प्रोग्राम, मॉड्यूलर एम्प्लॉयबल स्किल्स, इन सारे माध्यमों के जरिए 12वीं पंचवार्षिक योजना के अंतर्गत 5 करोड़ बिगर कृषि नॉन फार्म क्षेत्र में रोजगार निर्माण करने का लक्ष्य 12वीं योजना ने हमारे सामने रखा है। ये मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूं। धन्यवाद।
जगदीश जी, जहां तक स्वास्थ्य का सवाल है, ये तो बहुत एक ऐसा मुद्दा है जिसके लिए लोगों की जिंदगी दुख से भर जाती है। तो हमने कोशिश ये की है कि जैसे आपने कहा कि दवाएं हैं, डॉक्टर नहीं है, ANM नहीं है और कई साधनों से हम लोग वंचित हैं। तो हमने ये कोशिश की है कि जो ट्रेनिंग से ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज कम है और ये बहुत हद तक आप एक सरपंच हैं तो बॉटम्स अप प्लानिंग जिसका जिक्र मोंटेक साहब ने किया, बॉटम्स अप प्लानिंग में वो प्लानिंग तो आप ही के हिस्से में आती है। आप अपने स्तर से प्लान करें, स्टेट्स अपने स्तर से प्लान करें और उसको इंसेंटिवाइज किया जाए कि हम ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को ये ट्रेनिंग दें और ट्रेनिंग करके उनको स्पेशली प्राइमरी हेल्थ सेंटर जो गांव के स्तर पे जिस तरह से ये चीज जमीन पे उतरनी चाहिए तो वही ट्रेनिंग ANM को दे, नर्स को दे और उसके साथ साथ हमारी जो आयुष सेक्टर है, जो हमारा आयुर्वेद है, हिकमत है, जो सारे हमारे 5 आयुष सेक्टर है, उसको हम किस तरह से मेन स्ट्रीम करके और उससे भी हम मदद लें। तो और गांव के स्तर पे ये भी कोशिश की है कि उनको किसी एक लिमिटेड मतलब एक लिमिटेड ट्रेनिंग से उनको इस काबिल बना दिया जाए कि वो प्राइमरी हेल्थ सेंटर में बैठ के और काम कर सकें। तो और दूसरी एक और बहुत जरूरी बात वही मैं आखिर में ये कहना चाहूंगी कि जो सड़कों की सुविधा है जिसके बारे में आप जानते हैं, आप सरपंच हैं, तो उससे अगर ज्यादा गंभीर बीमारी से कोई किसी का एनकाउंटर हो तो एक तरह से एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाने के लिए भी वो सक्षम है। और सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि इस योजना में यूनिवर्सल हेल्थ केयर यानी कि पूरे स्तर पे हर एक को सेहत का लाभ पहुंचाना।
Okay, let me just take another question which is coming in from social media, and do remember you can post any question you want on Google Plus, on Twitter. Use the hashtag #12plan. You can also tweet me if you want. My handle is @vikramchandra. So a couple of questions that are coming in on agriculture, and I can perhaps throw that to Dr. Abhijit Sen. What is going to be done to provide relevant information and to help farmers enhance farm yields? This perhaps one of the most crucial things for us to do. So Has Narayan Swamy has asked that question. Dr. Abhijit Sen.
Well, I suppose,
Talk to us about agriculture in general and farm yields in particular.
well, I suppose extension has been always a problem. For a number of years, we've been trying to follow this up with in a number of ways. I mean, television, guys going to farms, trying to set up talking shops, farm schools. And I guess the internet, if it's there, is going to add one more handle to it, particularly because it's also interactive, unlike television or a lot of other things. And now that, and so basically connecting up the guys who are sitting in universities, guys who are sitting in the KVK, they're connected themselves, but
Alright, that's the Google Hangout there with Planning Commission members. We will of course cut back to that at 5:30 p.m. But let's take a break at this point. On the other side, we'll come back with all the other top headlines of the day. Stay tuned.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV Profit.
Welcome back. We're cutting right back to the Planning Commission's Google Hangout that's being moderated by NDTV's Vikram Chandran.
The big question for us is that we've all been hearing about bottom-up planning, but so far whatever we've seen is a fairly exclusivist way of functioning. So how do we translate a process of being consulted? We were all consulted before the plan, but substantive participation. So if you're really looking at inclusive growth, inclusive development, it's not going to happen without substantive participation. And I think that difference between just mere consultation and participation needs to be appreciated and needs to be delivered. Otherwise the system continues to function on its own, and the civil society, the common people, other stakeholders remain outsiders and mute spectators.
All right, so Dr. Ahluwalia, we
I want to quickly
hangouts, but we need to get everyone. His point is you need to make it even more participative.
No, look, I completely agree that planning and indeed implementation should be participative. But remember that when we provide money that ultimately goes to a primary school or to a village health center, the participation has to be through the Gram Panchayat, either the health society or the education society. It cannot be just left to, targeted to include, from the center to include particular groups. The fact is that a lot of our money is now going into health and education. There are village education and health committees, members of the panchayat are there, they can bring in other people. That's the democratic vehicle through which social stakeholders should start participating. And quite frankly, if we find that panchayats are not effecting these things, we will certainly talk to the state government. I mean, Bhairava ji, आप सुन रहे हैं, तो मैं कह रहा हूँ कि अगर जो आपके ग्राम में जो स्कूल है, उस स्कूल को सुपरवाइज करने के लिए एक पंचायत एजुकेशन कमेटी है, जो आपके ग्राम में हेल्थ सेंटर है, उसको सुपरवाइज करने के लिए कोई पंचायत कमेटी है. अब वो कमिटीज काम कर रही है कि नहीं कर रही, लेकिन अगर नहीं कर रही तो प्लानिंग कमीशन कुछ नहीं कर सकती. हमारा कहना यह है कि ये पंचायत को सॉर्ट आउट करना पड़ेगा.
मेहरबान जी, आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे इसमें?
जी सर, मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा कि जो ग्राम पंचायत स्तर पर जो हॉस्पिटल है, वहां पर एक स्पेशल डॉक्टर होना चाहिए. जैसे कोई सीरियस बीमारी तो उसके लिए यहाँ से करीबन सिटी में जाना पड़ता है, उसके लिए हर ग्राम पंचायत स्तर पे एक कम से कम डॉक्टर तो होना जरूरी है. और रही बात शिक्षा की, तो जैसे अध्यापकों की कमी है, वैसे सुपरवाइज तो करती है कमेटी, लेकिन जैसे अध्यापकों की कमी है तो वो पंचायत उसको पूरी नहीं कर सकती सर. हम केवल उसको आगे इंफॉर्मेशन दे सकते हैं.
Okay, that comment coming in from Bhairava. Now let me just take some more questions from social media. Sumit Kashyap has just tweeted me to say, what plans are there to increase groundwater levels and water conservation, especially in rural India? Water could well be one of the biggest crises that India is going to face in the coming years, and we better start planning for it, as I think is what really he's alluding to. Who would like to take that, Dr. Ahluwalia?
Well, it should have been taken up by my colleague Mihir Shah, but he is in Madhya Pradesh right now. So I will answer that, and I'll ask Abhijit to pitch it. The 12th plan gives more emphasis to water than has ever been done in any other plan. Traditionally, the analysis of water has been in terms of major irrigation schemes. For the first time in the 12th plan, we are saying that we need to focus on water conservation, we need to concentrate on dry land areas, we need to move to smaller scale irrigation systems rather than the big dams, and we need a lot more information. So with that, let me just turn to Abhijit, because we do believe that if we don't solve this problem, we'll have massive drinking water problems, we'll have problems for cattle, and we will not be able to raise agricultural productivity. But I just want to assure them that this time around there are many new things being done.
Water I think is as much on the top of the 12th plan as education, as health is. And one of the starting points of that is that we know there's a groundwater problem, we know there's a general water problem, and the groundwater problem is getting worse. Unfortunately, we don't know as much about it as we need to know, and I think we neglect it too long. So the first thing that the 12th plan is going for, which is new absolutely, is getting a sense and a system of knowing what the aquifers look like. How much water there is the water table going up, is it going down, and what affects the water table going down. So aquifer mapping is the first thing that's happening in this plan, first time ever, and that's related to the fact that there's a lot going on now, not necessarily from the water ministry, but under NREGA, for example, huge amounts of farm ponds are being done. We need to know, are they really actually affecting the water level? Some people say yes, some people are dubious about it. I think the first thing to do is we've got to get the data right on that, and then continue with whatever is working, and slow down whatever isn't. On water, I think we are serious about it this time. And then of course the other side of it, which is not again a water ministry thing, there are some parts of the country which know that they're badly using water. We will have, and we started already in the budget, some attempt to encourage states to get away from crops which are actually bleeding their own system dry.
Let me now come up with a question which I think is aimed at Mr. Arun Maira. Palla Reddy is asking, industrialization produces steel, it produces power, it's a base. Are we really being able to give enough priority to basic industries in the 12th plan? And Mr. Maira, if I could just add to that, it is obviously the 12th plan is talking in a reasonably ambitious manner of saying we have to get back to 10% by the end of the 12th plan, certainly. Given some of the issues that we've been having, given some of the problems with infrastructure which are continuing, do you think those are realistic targets?
Yes, they are actually. We got down this time to focus on manufacturing and industry in a very serious way, in a different way. In that we engage with the small-scale industries in a variety of industries from across the country, and also for big industries in different sectors from across the country, along with other stakeholders from government, and in many cases the unions and labor also. To figure out what are the constraints on the growth of industry in the country. And we located a variety of constraints and together made plans to address those constraints. So in this case, we have an implementation plan which is made by and large with inputs from those implementers who have to implement the plan. So it's not top-down given to them, it's made together. So in this plan, we have then totaled up, having made the plan, what would be the outcomes in terms of jobs that would be created if we achieve our targets. And we found that we could, during the next 5 years, generate a number of jobs which would, as we keep adding the jobs, we would meet the target of the National Manufacturing Policy, which is to generate up to around 100 million jobs in manufacturing by 2025. So in other words, we set in motion a process of people being engaged with the plan and the implementation required in the plan to achieve the big national target, 100 million jobs, which is absolutely essential if you want to create more livelihoods and for people to participate in the growth of the country through generating incomes by their employment. So I think we've got a plan with a difference for industry manufacturing this time.
Okay, I was mentioning infrastructure and answering lots of questions starting to come in on power. Professor Iyer says power peak shortfalls at a whopping 66 gigawatts. Shankar Cheluri, power sectors in a crisis. How are we going to handle this? Chandresh Jain says every plan falls short on projected capacity additions. What are we going to do about this? And there's a huge shortfall in the availability of coal and gas as well. How will this plan get implemented? Lots and lots of questions on power. Perhaps Mr. Chaturvedi might want to take this. Do we have enough power in the plan?
Well, the power sector had three sets of issues. First, the question of capacities. That we have handled well in the 11th plan. They have added around 2.5 times of what we normally did in the normal plans. We used to add 20,000, they added 55,000. And in the 12th, we have planned for around 88,000. So that issue has been sorted out well. Secondly, domestic manufacturing capacity, that issue also has been sorted out well. Now we have around 25 to 30,000 megawatt. We used to have around 6,000 to 10,000, around 3 times as much. The third issue is the question of fuel, which has been a matter of concern because we have really suddenly in the 11th plan had a quantum jump from the earlier plans. That has been taken up now, new blocks being given, and in the current year, the growth rate has been more optimistic, much more optimistic than what it was, and I'm hoping that in the coming years it will get better as more plants come up, and also the atomic power plants also are coming up on stream. The third issue is regarding the health of the utilities, because of which the funds flow has been constrained, and we are taking up that issue very well. Government has given a package, number of states are on board, and we are hoping that with this the fund flow to the utilities will start. So we are hopeful that with this and the measure of power efficiency and energy efficiency measures we have taken, we would be able to reduce the shortage of power by the end of the 12th plan, and we'll be going 1.10 jump forward in the plan to reach at a higher level. So I'm hopeful that we should be able to move forward in a much better manner in the coming 3-4 years.
Okay, here's a question that I think I'd like to probably throw to Sindhushri Kullad. We've had so much attention in recent times on accountability. So Niketa Malhotra is asking, how does the government plan to include or to be more inclusive by increasing the accountability of its officials? Would you like to take this?
Yes.
Accountability.
The accountability systems of government are well known. It is just that we have not been as open as we should be to what we have actually explained to those to whom we are accountable, whether it's the parliament, whether it's the cabinet, or whether it is our own superiors. Now with the Right to Information Act, I think the accountability is a wide open book. Whatever we do, we explain ourselves, and wherever we explain ourselves, we leave it open to anyone who wishes to know why we took a decision. So to that extent, I think accountability systems are now more transparent than they were before, and that makes us a little more careful in explaining ourselves better. Maybe we are not doing as good a job in communicating, but I think this whole exercise today is part of that, of explaining ourselves and communicating ourselves to you and others better.
Our domain experts to participate in many of these programs, and we need more community participation. Having said that, we do realize that technology is going to play an important role. With technology, we are going to create new jobs, different kinds of jobs. So I'm very hopeful. Looking at the young talent in India, as you know, we have 550 million young below age of 25. To me, that is the workforce for the world and not just for India. So our emphasis on skill development, our emphasis on higher education, expansion, excellence, equity, all of these things will pay dividend, but it takes time. You know, I tell a lot of my business colleagues that you are building a company and we are trying to build a nation. It's very different. Nation building requires lot of patience, lot of collaboration, and we are not very good at collaborations, and a lot of good communication. So I think technology is going to play an important role in democratization of information, in coordination. It's going to be a new tool, and I am very excited about new technology, not just in IT, biotech, nanotech, materials, stem cell research. All of these things offer huge potential to solve problems differently. But I'd like to see Indian model of development.
Okay.
I'd like to see focus on affordability, scalability, sustainability. I'd like to use our talent to solve the problems of the poor at the bottom of the economic pyramid. I mean, these are all the challenges which are unique to India.
Okay.
I'm very hopeful.
All right, let me just get Kiran Mazumdar Shaw in on that note. Kiran, is building a company very different from building a nation?
Well, you know, of course it is, but I think the question I also want to pose is when we are talking about creating 15 million jobs a year, new jobs a year, I do believe that entrepreneurship has a very important role to play. I think we should focus on building an entrepreneurial economy for this country. And, you know, when you look at what's happening today in terms of investing in entrepreneurship, sure, there's a lot of money being invested in startups and young new companies, but are we investing enough to take them to the next level? We need to build sustainable businesses. These businesses require low-cost capital and they require skills. Are we doing enough? Has the 12th five-year plan addressed this need that entrepreneurs need to take them to a sustainable scale?
Okay, and just on note, Karthik has just tweeted in saying the employability of youth in India is very low. How can we fix it? Professor Iyer says if the skill development budget of Gujarat is 100 crores, why is the government only spending 1,000 crores and so on and so forth? Skill development, employability. Dr. Ahluwalia, who wants to take this?
Can I just, one is that like Arun to pitch in a little bit on the question of entrepreneurial development, and I think on skill development, Jadhav will come. So first Arun, then Narendra.
Thank you very much. Actually, the skill development and the creation of enterprises and employment go hand in hand, and they can't be seen as entirely separate. And Kiran is right. We have to grow much more employment, which will come, some is self-employment, new entrepreneurs who will engage others, and then they don't grow up to create larger employment. So we, as I mentioned earlier, have looked at why is it that the small enterprises don't grow, and why don't we have more small enterprises? And we have located some key problems, one of which Kiran you mentioned yourself, which is the availability of finance, capital, to small enterprises, to entrepreneurs is very deficient in our country. So from the Indian National Innovation Council, we created the concept of an India Innovation Fund towards small enterprises, very small enterprises, last mile, which are not taking funds from the usual large financial system. Second is, small enterprises need nurturing, as you pointed out, Kiran, and that nurturing is in two sides. One is the entrepreneurs also need to be helped in terms of their skills to be able to manage and the growth of their enterprise. Secondly, we found that we are quite poor in our country in using the strategy of clusters, which strategy has been used very effectively by other countries in growing their industry, especially entrepreneurs, small enterprises and entrepreneurs. So we are focused in this plan very much in making India probably the best in the world in the formation and the management and the growth of clusters whereby small enterprises and small entrepreneurs benefit the most.
Okay.
Very briefly. Thank you, sir. We all talk about the demographic dividend. This plan, the 12th five-year plan, is premised on the recognition that there's nothing automatic in the demographic dividend which is fortuitously available to us. We need to harness this demographic dividend, and if we fail to harness the demographic dividend, it might as well turn into a demographic nightmare. And that is why the focus of the 12th five-year plan is on higher education and skill development, and the three-stage procedure, a detailed institutional framework has been created, and we need to expedite this with the goal that the Honorable Prime Minister had given, that by the year 2020, 2022, we shall have 500 million skilled person power. Thank you.
Okay, let me start getting in some, we are starting to wind down now, so let me get some final thoughts from, first from Amitabh. Amitabh, any thoughts from you or questions?
Sure, as in two very quick comments. One, I think I would say that there's a huge difference between transparency and accountability. And accountability to what? I think accountability to social justice is something that remains pretty much outside the kind of politics we are looking at. The second quick point, that if you really look at the political shift, we were looking at politics of Antodaya, and now we are looking at a politics of growth where inclusion is just a footnote. So how do we respond to this fundamental shift in our politics and in planning?
Okay, final quick thought from you, Jay.
My final thought is I want to cite infrastructure as an example where in a democracy we struggle between the populist pressures that politicians have to contend with and the important investments that need to be made for the future of the nation. After many years of struggling, we've come to an infrastructure expenditure level of about 7% of GDP, which is a good thing because we for many years struggled at about 4% level, and this is a good thing. But if we have to compare ourselves to countries like China, which for almost 3 decades spent almost 10% of their GDP on infrastructure, we have to start wondering whether democracy slows us down and how do we come up with plans that can take up this kind of expenditure to a higher level. Perhaps we can incentivize these kinds of expenditures in a better way, but this is something that we need to think about.
All right, so Dr. Ahluwalia, final quick comment from you, and then I know Mr. Pitroda has to make an announcement.
Well,
the
actually,
question of infrastructure, is that the top issue? Just 2 points which I think I'm getting from all this. Infrastructure, is that the major thrust in the 12th plan as well? And number 2, execution. At the end of the day, we may have the greatest of plans, but if we don't execute on our plans, we are going to struggle.
Well, let me, before I say something, let me ask Rajiv Shukla to comment on the issues of accountability and politics, because that's very important, and I think he has something to say.
Well, as far as accountability is concerned, we have got a democratic model. In democracy, we are accountable to the people who have been elected by the masses, by the people of this country. We can only be accountable to them. And thinking of envisaging any other model, and we want them to be accountable, I think it will create a very bizarre situation. So we can only be accountable to the elected people. And that's Parliament of India. So thinking of something else, I think is not appropriate. I think